The universe had forgotten them. In the farthest reaches of space, the most advanced species in the galaxy had never anticipated such a fate. Earth, once a cradle of humanity's remarkable ascent, was now a distant echo in the cosmos. Once, humanity had been vibrant, interconnected, and rich in their ambition, building cities that touched the sky, exploring the secrets of the cosmos, and launching themselves beyond their own planet. But now, they were alone, forgotten, and the rest of the galaxy had moved on. The human race had been wiped from the collective memory of the stars, lost to time and the terrible consequence of a war that had never fully made sense. There had been a cosmic reset, an erasure of humanity's legacy. Some said it was an act of mercy, others that it was simply an unfortunate accident. But the result was clear. Earth was no longer part of the galactic conversation. The memory of their existence had been erased by the very beings who once considered them a nuisance, a threat too minor to worry about, but too dangerous to ignore. In the grand scheme of things, humanity had become an afterthought. And then, in the dark corners of space, the humans made their return. No one had seen it coming. No one had prepared. The galaxy was far more interconnected now. Races had developed alliances, expanded their borders, and achieved what had seemed impossible a millennia ago. The galaxy was a place of peace, or so it seemed. The alien races were wrong. They had believed that humanity was gone, relegated to the rubble of their homeworld. But Earth, long buried in the dust of forgotten history, had undergone something far stranger, far more terrifying than anyone could comprehend. On a spaceship, far beyond known territories, Captain Alaric Hall stood at the helm of the Relic, a human vessel that had somehow survived. He surveyed the stars. So much of their beauty was now lost on him. The cold void had become a companion to his crew, a silent, consuming companion. His eyes, once filled with wonder, had hardened with every passing year of isolation. Earth had gone dark, and with it, humanity had been forced to evolve in ways no one could have predicted. "We've detected something, Captain." A voice came over the intercom, breaking his reverie. It was Lieutenant Juno, one of the few surviving crew members who had held onto the hope that there was still something beyond the dark abyss. Something large. A ship, but not one we've seen before. It's not human. Alaric's eyes narrowed as he turned to the holoscreen, where a massive, unfamiliar vessel flickered into existence. Its design was sleek, alien, the kind of craft that suggested technological sophistication far beyond anything humans had ever managed. The problem, however, wasn't the ship itself. It was the size of it. Its sheer presence sent a ripple of unease through him. "Send out the signal," he ordered. "Let's see if we can make contact. We're not alone out here." His voice was steady, but his pulse quickened. The last time humanity had encountered a ship of that magnitude, it had not gone well. Memories of the war, the bitter losses, and the horrific confrontation with the galactic federations that had turned their backs on Earth flooded his mind. He hadn't thought of those memories in years, but they were always there, lurking beneath the surface. The crew had drifted too far into the unknown to turn back now. The Federation had erased them, shelved them into non-existence, and the human race had endured the brutal cold void, scavenging what they could from the remnants of old technologies. They had learned to survive, to become something no longer entirely human. They had been forgotten, and it had transformed them. "The transmission is going through," Juno reported. Alaric's hand hovered over the console. A decision had to be made. The message they sent could either be their salvation or their doom. "Open the channel," he commanded. There was a brief silence, and then a voice came through the static. It was alien, unfamiliar, but sharp, direct. "Human vessel, we are the Thracian Empire. Identify yourself." Alaric's heart skipped a beat. The Thracians. He had heard of them, fierce, imperial, and relentless. But they were a distant memory, even for the old galactic archives. They were rumored to be on the brink of extinction. Their empire had crumbled, their star systems forgotten. "We are the Relic," Alaric said, his voice firm, though every fiber of his being screamed to run. "We are humans." And we are not what you think we are. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then came the reply, more chilling than he could have imagined. We were told you were gone, and yet here you are. But you have no place in this galaxy anymore. You do not belong here. The message sent a shiver down his spine. The galaxy had forgotten them, erased their legacy, cast them aside. But if the Thracians were any indication, humanity's return would not be a quiet one. They had been forgotten for too long, but not for much longer. The real question was, what had humanity become in the years they had been lost to time? The Thracians' response echoed in Alaric's mind, reverberating through his thoughts like an alarm bell. You do not belong here. The words clung to him as he watched the enormous alien ship loom closer. He had known it wouldn't be easy, but this was something different. The Thracians didn't fear much, and from their tone, it was clear. They feared humanity. Captain, what do we do? Juno asked, her voice tense, her hands gripping the edge of the command station, as if she were ready to bolt at any moment. The other crew members stood behind her, their faces a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Stay calm, Alaric ordered, though his own heart raced. We need information. They know us, or they think they do. His fingers danced over the console, sending a series of commands through the ship systems, pulling up old intelligence files and trying to find any clue about the Thracians' strange message. But it was useless. There was nothing recent on them. It was as if the records had been deliberately erased, scrubbed clean, almost like the galaxy had gone out of its way to forget. A sudden beeping from the communications console drew his attention. The Thracians were sending something, an encrypted message. Alaric's eyes flicked to Juno. Decrypt it. Juno worked quickly, her fingers moving faster than humanly possible, her mind trained to work with the encrypted codes left behind by the many galactic powers that had tried to ignore humanity. After a few tense moments, the screen flickered to life. The message wasn't in a language Alaric recognized, but there were images, strange symbols, artifacts, and a galaxy map showing an area Alaric knew too well. Earth's location. Looks like they've been tracking us, Juno muttered, eyes narrowing as she scanned the decrypted files. And they think we're dangerous. Very dangerous. Alaric's mind raced. The Thracians must have known something about humanity's transformation, something he hadn't even begun to understand. After the war, after Earth's fall, they had been forced to adapt. They were no longer the same race. The isolation, the hardships, the need to survive, it had changed them. And now, they had to show the galaxy what they had become. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden shaking of the relic's hull, a violent jolt that threw the crew off balance. The lights flickered. Captain, Juno yelled, her voice strained. They're firing on us. Alaric gritted his teeth, slamming his fist onto the console. Shields up. Full power to the engines. Get us out of here, now. But it was already too late. The Thracians had already fired, their weapons cutting through the vast emptiness of space with terrifying precision. The first shot slammed into the relic side, sending a shockwave through the ship that rattled every inch of metal. The ship groaned, and alarms blared as systems began to fail. Shields are holding for now, but not for long. Juno reported, panic creeping into her voice. Return fire. Alaric ordered. All weapons full blast. We won't survive if we don't fight back. The crew scrambled to obey, but Alaric's mind was elsewhere. The Thracians didn't just want to chase them off. They were hunting them. And that meant something much more serious than a mere territorial dispute. Humanity had somehow become a monster in their eyes. Captain, we've got incoming, shouted Lieutenant Tessa, her voice cutting through the chaos. A display on the holoscreen showed a second Thracian warship appearing from the darkness, its weapons charging. We're outnumbered. Juno added, a bitter edge to her words. If we don't make a run for it, we're done. Alaric gritted his teeth. He could see it in their eyes. They were afraid. The humans aboard the relic were outmatched, and yet they still had one advantage. One advantage that no one had expected. We don't run, he said, his voice cold, cutting through the panic. We fight. We've learned how to survive. Now let's remind them of who we are. Without waiting for confirmation, Alaric activated the ship's emergency systems, bringing the remaining weapons online. The ship rumbled violently as the massive cannons powered up. They had no choice but to fight for their survival and for the future of humanity. Prepare for a counterattack. Alaric ordered, his voice like ice. He turned to the crew. We'll make them remember the monsters they created. The relic's weapons discharged, sending a stream of destructive energy toward the Thracian warships. The first ship took the brunt of the assault, its shields flickering before the barrage tore through them. For a moment, it seemed as though the humans had gained the upper hand. But the Thracians were no amateurs. The second ship returned fire with deadly accuracy, striking the relic once more. This time, the ship shuddered violently, and a burst of sparks shot out from the control panel. The power flickered. For a brief moment, Alaric thought the ship might lose power entirely. "Captain," Juno shouted, her face pale. "We've lost propulsion in the aft section. The engines are failing." The crew had to act quickly. The only way out was through a nearby asteroid field, an area where their small, nimble vessel could use its agility to escape. But that would require a coordinated, precise maneuver. One wrong move, and they would be sitting ducks for the Thracians. Set course for the asteroid field. Now, Alaric barked. The ship lurched forward, engines straining as they limped toward the field. But before they could even reach the edge of the field, a horrifying new development occurred. From the depths of space, as if summoned by the conflict, another force emerged. A shadow, too large to comprehend, cast its presence over the battlefield. It wasn't just a ship. It was something else entirely. The very sight of it made the Thracians hesitate. And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy's oldest war machine found itself uncertain. Alaric could barely comprehend what was happening. Whatever had just arrived wasn't friendly, and humanity, once forgotten, was about to become the monster that even the galaxy feared. The colossal shadow loomed over the battlefield, dwarfing both the Thracian warships and the relic. For a moment, time seemed to slow. The Thracians, who had been relentless in their pursuit, froze, their weapons no longer aimed at the humans. They knew better than to provoke this unknown force. The new arrival wasn't just a ship, it was a presence. Alaric stared at the massive silhouette on the holoscreen, his mind racing. The shape was angular, sleek, and impossibly large. No markings, no identifying features, just a looming shadow, a cold void in space. Its surface seemed to absorb light, making it look like a rip in the fabric of reality itself. Is that a ship?" Juno whispered, her voice thick with disbelief. "It's not a ship," Alaric muttered under his breath. He couldn't quite explain it, but it felt wrong. The technology was unlike anything they had ever encountered. And yet, there was something familiar about it, something that gnawed at the edges of his consciousness. The Thracians seemed to recognize it too. Their ships, now silent, backed away, hesitating like a predator unsure of its prey. The silence stretched out, eerie and unnatural. Even the relic's crew stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. The beeping of the comms console shattered the quiet tension. A transmission, though this time it wasn't coming from the Thracians. The voice was deep, almost metallic, and filled the cabin with a strange resonance. It wasn't a language, at least not one that the crew could recognize. It was a frequency, a hum that seemed to speak directly to the mind. Alaric's breath caught in his throat. His hand hovered over the console as the strange voice continued, growing louder in intensity. Then, in a language that no one expected, it spoke. Human. The word cracked the stillness like a thunderclap. It was a single word, but it carried weight, a burden that reverberated deep within Alaric's chest. His eyes widened as the voice continued, clearer now, cutting through the hum. You were forgotten, but you have returned, and now you are the hunters. Alaric's stomach twisted. His fingers gripped the edge of the console, his pulse hammering in his ears. He had heard the legends, the old stories told in whispers by the surviving humans. The creatures who had forgotten humanity's existence, Yes, but also the beings that had shaped their future. They were known by a single name, the Architects. Who are you? Alaric managed to ask, his voice trembling despite his best efforts to maintain control. What do you want from us? The voice paused, as if considering the question carefully, then spoke again, its words slow, deliberate. You are of us, and yet not of us. You have become more than the sum of your parts. You have become the shadow of what we once were. Alaric felt the weight of the words pressed down on him. The crew had always known that the war had changed them, that the isolation and the brutal reality of their survival had forged something new, something dangerous. But this was something beyond understanding. It wasn't just that humanity had survived the fall of Earth, it was that they had transcended it. We don't understand, Juno said, her voice small, hesitant. What do you mean by we have become the hunters? The response came as a deep guttural chuckle, a sound so unsettling that it sent a chill through everyone in the room. Those who once feared, you will fear you no longer. You have learned the ways of the predator. Now you will reclaim your place in the galaxy, not as the forgotten, but as the new apex. We have watched. We have waited. And now the hunt begins. Before Alaric could respond, the mysterious ship suddenly surged forward, its immense form moving with terrifying speed. The Thracian ships, once poised for battle, scrambled to retreat, clearly outmatched. But the relic wasn't their target. The Architects, if that's what they truly were, had something else in mind. The massive ship fired not at the relic or the Thracians, but at the very fabric of space around them. A wave of energy shot out, distorting the vacuum of space itself. The Thracian ships tried to maneuver, but the wave engulfed them with ease. Their shields flared brightly, then shattered as the energy swept over them like a tide. Their vessels crumpled, their once imposing forms reduced to floating debris in an instant. The entire event unfolded in mere seconds. One moment, the Thracians were alive, in control of the battlefield. The next, they were nothing more than remnants, scattered in space like dust. Alaric watched in stunned silence, his mind unable to process the destruction he had just witnessed. The power displayed by the unknown ship was beyond anything humanity had ever dreamed of. And yet, it had barely acknowledged the relic. Its focus was on the Thracians, who had been the ones to fire upon them first. The Architects, if they were indeed the Architects, weren't here to negotiate. They weren't here for diplomacy. They were here for something far more primal, the return of humanity's strength. They had been forgotten, but now the universe would remember them. Captain, Juno said, her voice shaking as she turned to him. What just happened? Did they just wipe them out? Alaric swallowed hard. His gaze locked on the screen as he watched the last remnants of the Thracian fleet drift into nothingness. Yes, he said, his voice low. They did. And we're caught in the middle of something much bigger than we can understand. The Architect ship moved slowly, deliberately, as if it had done what it came to do and was now assessing its next move. It was waiting, watching them. We're not alone in this anymore, Alaric muttered. And we're not just survivors. We are the next predators. We just have to decide what we're going to do with that power. The strange voice returned, echoing through the comms once more. Human, it intoned, each syllable loaded with significance. Your hunt begins now. The silence after the Architect's message felt like a weight pressing down on Alaric's chest. Even as the wreckage of the Thracian fleet floated in space, the relic remained untouched. The Architect's colossal ship loomed before them, motionless, as though it was watching them, studying them. Captain, what do we do now? Juno's voice trembled, though she was trying to mask the fear that had crept into her words. The reality of their situation was beginning to sink in. Humanity had just been thrust into the role of an apex predator. It wasn't just the Thracians they had to worry about now. It was what the Architects wanted from them. What the galaxy would want from them. Alaric was silent for a long moment, staring at the screen. The image of the Architect's ship seared into his mind. It was massive, ancient, and terrifying. There was a dark wisdom to it, a sense that it had been around long enough to see entire civilizations rise and fall. "Prepare for the unknown," Alaric finally said, his voice steady despite the chaos swirling in his thoughts. "The galaxy's not ready for us. But we're not ready for whatever comes next, either. But we'll face it head on." His words were met with quiet nods from the crew. They had no choice but to follow his lead, for better or worse. Alaric had spent years surviving, adapting, becoming something more than just a man, a hunter, a survivor. And now, the universe had dropped a new challenge at their doorstep. If humanity was to thrive, they would have to become more than the sum of their parts. They would have to become what the architects saw in them, predators. "Captain, we've been receiving some strange data from the architect ship," said Lieutenant Tessa, interrupting the uneasy quiet. "It's not a traditional communication system. The data we're getting doesn't make sense. It's like they're transmitting on a completely different level of reality, something we don't have the technology to decode." Alaric turned sharply toward her, his mind racing. "What does it mean?" It's like they're offering something, but I don't know what it is. There's a signal coming from them, but it's encrypted beyond anything we've seen. It's not in any of the usual formats. Tessa hesitated, her brow furrowing. "It's almost like it's biological, not like technology at all." Alaric's stomach churned. Biological signals? He had heard of ancient races, ones that were said to have merged with their technology to such an extent that they were indistinguishable. Could the architects be something like that? Something beyond even the concept of alien machines? The thought unsettled him. "We're in uncharted territory," Alaric muttered, running his hands through his hair. "Whatever they're offering, it won't be simple. We need to be ready." "Captain," Juno said slowly, "we also need to know why they're here. If they wanted us dead, they had the power to destroy us. Why let us live? Why didn't they just wipe us out like they did to the Thracians?" Alaric's eyes narrowed. That was the question. The architects had wiped out the Thracian fleet with minimal effort. They could have done the same to the relic, and yet they hadn't. Instead, they had merely watched. "I think they want something from us," Alaric said, the realization hitting him like a punch to the gut. "We've been forgotten for so long, and now we're here. The universe abandoned us, but the architects didn't. They've been watching us. They want us to become what we once were." The words rang out in the silence of the command deck. What we once were. Humanity's role as predators was not a future role. It was their birthright. But what did that mean for a species that had been scattered and scattered for so long? Before Alaric could continue, a new transmission burst through the comms, breaking through the static. This time, the voice of the architects was not cold, nor was it the impersonal hum they had heard before. It was more personal. It resonated deeply, almost intimately, with a power that made Alaric's bones vibrate. "Human," the voice intoned, "you are the inheritors of a hunt. You have awoken, and your bloodline is reborn. But know this, the galaxy will not bow to you willingly. You will be hunted, tested. The predators are many, and your place is not guaranteed. You must rise to meet the challenges we set before you, or you will fall into darkness, forgotten once more." The words sent a chill down Alaric's spine, though he forced his expression to remain steady. "Hunted?" Juno asked, her voice strained. "By who?" The voice didn't answer directly. Instead, it gave a cryptic command. "Your trial begins. Come and meet your first challenge. Prepare yourselves." Without warning, the architect's ship moved again, accelerating toward the edge of the asteroid field. The energy from its engines distorted the surrounding space, warping the very fabric of reality. Alaric watched, tense, as the ship's dark shadow moved across the stars, leading them toward an unknown destination. "Captain," Tessa spoke, her voice tight with fear. "They're guiding us somewhere. We don't know where we're going, but we can't stop now." "We're not going to stop," Alaric said grimly, his hand tightening around the console. "If we're going to survive this, we have to follow them. They've given us a trial, and we're going to face it head on. Even if it means going into the unknown." Juno asked, her voice small. Especially if it means that, Alaric replied. The galaxy's been running from us for too long. It's time to show them what we've become. The tension escalates in this fourth part, as the true nature of the architect's interest in humanity begins to take shape. Instead of being passive observers, they're pushing humanity toward something dangerous. A trial, an unknown challenge that could define humanity's place in the galaxy once and for all. The crew must now face the fact that they are no longer the hunted. They are the hunters, but the question remains. Who will be the prey in this deadly game? The relic followed the architect's ship through the void, its engines straining under the pressure. Alaric stood at the helm, his eyes scanning the dark expanse, the silence heavy as they moved deeper into the unknown. The crew was on edge, each of them tense and uncertain about what awaited them. No one knew what this trial would entail, but one thing was clear. The galaxy was about to see what humanity had become. And there was no turning back. The architect's ship moved ahead, its immense form warping the very fabric of space around them. It was as though the ship was guiding them through the stars, leading them down a path only it could see. The relic followed, maneuvering through the asteroid fields and into an uncharted part of the galaxy, a region where even the most advanced star maps had no data. "Captain, I'm picking up multiple energy signatures ahead," Lieutenant Tessa reported, her voice tight with tension. "Something's out there. It's massive." "How massive?" Alaric asked, his pulse quickening. "Almost the size of the architect's ship," she replied, her voice tinged with disbelief. "But there's more. It's alive." Alive. The word hung in the air like a shroud. Alaric's mind raced. The architects had spoken of the hunt, of predators, and of tests. What could they possibly be leading them to? And why had they chosen humanity for this trial? "Keep your eyes open, everyone," Alaric said, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts crashing through his mind. "We're about to find out exactly what this trial is." The relic pushed forward, its engines humming as it followed the mysterious signals toward the source. The crew watched the view screen, where a swirling mass of energy began to take shape. It looked like a cloud at first, then slowly, the cloud split open, revealing the hulking form of a massive, organic creature. It was like nothing Alaric had ever seen, a vast, floating leviathan, its body writhing with energy. Tendrils of dark matter seemed to pulse from its core, making it look as though the creature itself was an extension of the void. "By the stars," Juno whispered, awe and fear mixing in her voice. Is that the trial?" Alaric didn't respond. His eyes locked onto the leviathan, studying its every movement. It was alive, something ancient, something powerful. And it was clear that it wasn't just an obstacle. It was the challenge the architects had set before them. Suddenly, the massive creature emitted a low, resonant hum. The sound vibrated through the hull of the relic, as though the creature itself was communicating. The architect's voice came through the comms, its tone colder than before, but still heavy with purpose. "Human, this is your trial. Defeat the creature, and you will earn your place among the hunters. Fail, and you will be forgotten once more." A hush fell over the crew. The weight of the moment sank in, and Alaric felt the full force of the architect's challenge. This was it, their test. To survive, to prove humanity's strength, they had to face this beast and conquer it. Alaric turned to his crew, his eyes meeting theirs one by one. He could see the fear in their eyes, the uncertainty, but also something else. Resolve. They were not backing down. They had no choice but to rise to the challenge. "We don't back down," Alaric said, his voice low, firm. "We survive. We fight." He turned to Tessa. "Prepare the weapons. Juno, get the shields online. We need to make sure we're ready for anything." The crew moved quickly, their training taking over. Alaric remained at the helm, his gaze fixed on the creature ahead. It was monstrous, intimidating, but it was not invincible. Humanity had always been underdogs, always scrapping and clawing its way to survival. But that's what made them dangerous. That's what made them predators. As they drew closer, the leviathan opened its maw, revealing rows of jagged, crystalline teeth that seemed to shimmer with the energy flowing through its body. Alaric's hand hovered over the weapon's console, ready to unleash everything they had. But before he could act, the creature's tendrils shot forward, moving with terrifying speed. The relic shook as one of the tendrils struck the side of the ship, causing the hull to groan under the impact. Shields holding, but not for long. Juno called out, her voice strained. "We need to hit it now, before it damages us further." "Fire!" Alaric commanded. The relic's weapons roared to life, unleashing a barrage of energy bolts at the Leviathan. The shots struck its massive form, but the creature barely seemed to notice. Instead, it let out a deafening roar that reverberated through space itself. The void around them seemed to ripple as the creature responded, with its own devastating wave of energy. The ship rocked violently, alarms blaring as the relic struggled to stay intact. "We need to get in close," Alaric shouted. "Keep firing, but get us close enough to attack its core." Tessa worked the controls, expertly guiding the ship toward the creature's exposed underbelly. They were running out of time. The Leviathan was starting to recover from the initial barrage, its tendrils once again reaching out to strike them. The relic dove forward, weaving between the creature's thrashing limbs, dodging its strikes with seconds to spare. The crew held on for dear life, each of them focused on their tasks. Alaric's eyes never left the massive beast, watching for an opening. And then he saw it, a small gap in the creature's armor-like hide. It was a vulnerable spot. They had to take it. "All fire on that weak point," Alaric ordered. The relic's cannons locked onto the spot, firing relentlessly. The creature screamed, its massive form convulsing, as the energy blasts tore through its defenses. For a moment, it seemed as though the creature would collapse into the void. But then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the creature erupted in a burst of energy. The relic was thrown back, tumbling through the void, smoke pouring from its hull. "Damage report," Alaric barked, gripping the console tightly. "Systems are failing, Captain." Tessa shouted. "But it's done. The creature's gone." The beast's form flickered and then vanished, its massive body disintegrating into energy. Silence fell again, save for the heavy breathing of the crew. The architect's voice returned, its tone almost satisfied. "Human, you have passed your trial. You have proven yourselves worthy. Your place in the galaxy is now secured." Alaric slumped back in his chair, the weight of the moment crashing down on him. They had done it. Humanity had faced the test and emerged victorious. But even as the crew celebrated, Alaric knew one truth above all others. This was just the beginning. The architects had set them on a path, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity was no longer the forgotten. They were the monsters of legend. And the hunt was only just beginning. The final part of the story completes the transformation of humanity from a forgotten species to one that has reasserted its dominance. The trial with the Leviathan shows their resilience, resourcefulness, and adaptability, all traits that have made them formidable predators. With the architects acknowledging their victory, the stage is set for humanity to face whatever challenges the galaxy throws their way next. Would you like any adjustments or additional content for this story?